Welcome back to the Owner Seat podcast. If you run a studio, your software is either quietly making you money or quietly costing you members, and most owners have no idea which. I talk to a lot of fitness and wellness operators, and when the conversation turns to the tech stack, one platform keeps coming up. It's one of my favorites, and I can't wait to chat about it. And here's the person behind it, Laura Munkholm. So excited, the president and co-founder of Walla, which calls itself the industry, and by the way, it is the most advanced AI-powered fitness studio software. And I'd say it's definitely earned. You got to check it out if you haven't heard about them before. And today you will. What makes Laura the right person to build it is that she didn't come at this from tech. She came from the operator floor, just like y'all. She has nearly 2 decades in boutique fitness. She's managed a Yoga 6 studio, another great brand, where she carried the P&L and grew revenue over 40%. She knows exactly how to get it done. She founded Studio Solutions, a consultancy where she coached thousands of studio owners on operations, talent, and price optimization. She knows where the money leaks, my favorite thing, because she spent years helping owners plug it. And that's what led her to create Walla, software built to speak the language of wellness operators, wellness leaders, fitness leaders, to simplify operations and make profitability the standard for every studio, not the exception. Walla uses AI to predict which members are about to churn and re-engage. Oh my goodness, you need this. You got to make sure you know where they're going before they're gone. To fill those empty class spots, utilization, we talk about that a lot. We know how it can kill margin if you're not focusing on it, and turn the data owners can't read into the next profitable move. Laura also hosts the Well podcast. How did I get that wrong? I love that podcast. You have the most amazing guests. I'm jealous.
Thank you.
And she's a real advocate for women in leadership and for helping founders find joy in the businesses they believe for. What I love about Laura is that she leads with the heart and still talks like a CFO. She's all over. She has all the hats on. She knows community is the product. She knows community doesn't survive if the numbers don't work. That's the whole game for operators like you listening to this show. I'm excited for you to learn about Walla. Laura, welcome to the Owner Seat podcast.
My gosh, thank you. What an intro. I feel honored.
You came from finance and accounting, and then you ran a Yoga 6 studio where you carried the P&L and grew revenue 40%. Like I mentioned, what did you see standing in a real studio that made you believe the software the industry was using was actually holding you or any other business leader back?
Yeah. So once I left my career in finance and accounting recruiting, I was in sales, but I was speaking to CFOs. I was selling to CFOs all day long, talking to controllers, understanding what it took to run successful businesses. And I was a yoga teacher on the side and so passionate about the modality. And I got this opportunity when Yoga 6 was starting. I knew the founder, and basically they said, we need somebody who understands business and finance and sales to run this first. They essentially acquired the largest yoga studio in San Diego. And so I took this massive leap out of my corporate world and a huge pay cut to run a very large studio. And one of the first things I saw was the people who had been working there would immediately say, don't worry about learning the software. It's going to take you a year. Like, we'll just do it for you. Don't worry about if you need to run a report, here's the phone number for MindBody. And literally, any questions, it was like everywhere all over the studio, the phone number for MindBody tech support was there because nobody understood how it worked, what the numbers meant, constantly challenges with consumers using it. And so I really immediately saw somebody coming out of corporate America who had pretty reliable software. I didn't think about it. It was just, part of day-to-day life. Of course, it had its hiccups, but it wasn't like the pain point that it was in the studio. And so I was like, all right, my goal here is to figure out how this software works and become an expert in it, because from what I see, it's pretty powerful. And I can say MindBody is incredibly powerful software. It does a lot. There is a tremendous amount of data in it. When you actually learn how to use it correctly and when it's set up properly for the business, it can do a lot for you. But that seemed like a really tangled web for the business. And once I got into day-to-day operations, you're slammed all day long. You don't have time to sit there and, untangle that web.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah,
Tell me
exactly.
what to do.
Exactly. So I kind of quietly tucked like a little idea in the back of my mind that, God, I would love to do this better. But it wasn't until when I was working at Studio Solutions, started my consulting firm and was working with businesses. I did a lot of software consulting, teaching them how
Right.
to use their software, how to understand the data, the KPIs that were important, and then also a lot of sales training and teaching them the critical moments in the client journey. But I met my now business partner, Doug, and he was starting a fitness app, a utilization kind of yield management app for fitness called Limber. And a mutual friend was like, hey, if you're doing anything in boutique fitness, you got to meet Laura. And we just clicked and got along really well. And he was eventually acquired by MindBody very quickly, actually.
Wow. Yeah.
Became their SVP of consumer. And then after their Vista acquisition and he was done there, he reached back out and was like, as soon as my non-competes, whatever, all this is done, I think it's time. And I was like, my God, what? Already? This is crazy. I have little kids, but the rest is history, I guess.
It's so interesting because, you came up like from an operator point of view and then like almost from a high level, but still in the trenches as a consultant. So you're seeing all of the different pain points. You obviously lived it yourself. You're helping others get through that. And just in the back of your mind, it's like, we can do this better, right? These member management systems, these booking, all of the different things that we talk about on the show, all the unique economics and just having dashboards and reporting and data.
Yeah.
And I love, and I follow all your podcasts. I look at you're very active on LinkedIn. I love that. And, and then I've been under the hood a bit with Walla and it's amazing, right? What you all say is you speak the language of the operator, of the wellness or fitness leader. What does the older generation of studio software get wrong? You kind of were hitting on that right now.
Yeah.
About what the owner or leader actually runs the business day to day. Like why are some of these legacy systems, and not to speak poorly, right? They have great features about them too.
For
but
sure.
That's something that I learned about Walla that I saw right away was, whoa, this is modern. Like this is what the new modern leader really needs to run the business as fast as the consumer member is expecting you to run the business.
Right.
What are they getting wrong?
So there are two things that kind of drove me crazy when I was working with studios on other platforms before starting Walla. One was they were terrified of the reporting. They would see a giant list of numbers come up in front of them with 7 columns, 10 columns, and, a million filters up top. And now that I've gotten into it, I understand the complexity because in order for something to be customizable, oftentimes it has to have a level of complexity to it. But there just became this paralysis where they were scared to dive in. And even when they did figure it out, there was no guidance on what to do next. And so it bode well for me as a consultant because that's how I made my living because they had no idea what to do next, even if they did have the understanding of the numbers. So that was one thing that drove me crazy. The other thing was a lot of people trying to solve the problem of that talked about studio owners like they were dumb. And it made me so angry. Like, these are yoga teachers that don't know business, or these are Pilates studio owners that have no idea
green, yellow, red. Just give them the green, yellow, red.
Like, it was very condescending. And I was like, no, these are oftentimes women, incredibly smart women who are hustling like crazy. They just need something that speaks their language and tells them what to do next. They're doing 100 things every day. And if they have to dissect a system that doesn't make a lot of sense to them, or a system that's just giving them very surface level data and it's pretty, those two things, neither one of those actually solves the problem. We need something that is incredibly user-friendly and the interface is actually appealing. Like, you don't hate going into your software. And that's my business partner, Doug, is phenomenal at design. He's designed every page of our software, and I just would spill my guts to him and be like, okay, this is what, we know it should do. He'd ask me a million questions, and then he would come up with these beautiful UI designs. And I was like, yes. But anyway, it's a combination of deep data and understanding how to ask and answer the right questions, but also making it not intimidating for someone who, that isn't their natural or their background, right? So I really wanted to solve both of those things with Walla.
Well, let's switch gears into AI, right? So all of the conferences, there's obviously a bunch of segments and companies coming out. We do AI, we have all this AI, right? And then when I talk to people, like, I use AI, I prompt and read my emails. I'm like, no, not that type of AI. I'm like, that was so last year, the year before, right? What I love about what Walla does is we have, experience. Experience is 2026 and on, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a saturated market. You got to keep your members sticky. That's huge. So churn rate, right? Lifetime value is huge. And what Walla does is actually uses AI to proactively
Yes.
know when someone is at risk, right? Can you walk us through how it does that? And it's funny, I saw a post the other day where it's like, I think there was like a study, I don't know if ATN or someone posted about it, where it was like 70% of members that weren't using the gym never got a call, never got anything about re-engaging. Walla solves for that too, right?
Yeah. So yes, churn prediction is one part of the AI in Walla. What we do, a lot of platforms say they have some level of churn prediction, and really all they're looking at is, has this person stopped coming? Right. Like they look at
Visits.
attendance. That is the one metric they look at. We know it's a way bigger picture than that.
Yeah.
And so we actually partnered with AWS to start on this project a little over a year ago.
I didn't know that.
And what we said is like, okay, we have a tremendous amount of data about these people, even the second we get their address, right? So we looked at distance to the studio, how far is their commute? We looked at demographics, is this an area where this is someone who can afford a membership at your business? So we look at how much a membership costs at their business and how much the average income is in their, basically the street they live on. We look at something we call fitness affinity that we defined with AWS as the likelihood of somebody in that area to have a membership at a fitness facility. So we dug a lot deeper, but we also have things like ratings and reviews in Walla. So we can see if their user sentiment, like maybe they gave you 5 stars and constant reviews for the last year, and then the last 2 reviews they gave were 4s. So we can see, even if they gave you 4 stars or 5 stars, maybe they mentioned something that wasn't great about their last experience. So we're looking at all of these different factors. Is their favorite teacher still on the schedule? That's a huge one. Nobody talks about that, but I can tell you the last time I left a studio, it was because my favorite teacher moved to another one. So we know these things about the fitness consumer and what's really happening behind the scenes in a studio's business. So we incorporated all of that into the churn prediction machine in Walla. And one of the great things about our platform that, I think it's a little bit cliche now to say an all-in-one system, but having a true native built marketing, we built the text messaging aspect of it, is all there. Like you click on a name, you can see all the communication, you can text straight from there. So every time there is somebody you see that you're like, this is a critical moment in their journey, or they're about to churn, it doesn't take hopping into a marketing platform to go send them an email or your Google phone account. You keep it all in one place. And so then there's a log of all of that communication and you don't lose the moment. So that is one aspect of it. The other area where AI, I think, is going to continue to go further for businesses in the kind of predictive analytics area and also just the coaching area is that we essentially said, listen, every one of your businesses is unique. We're not going to tell you what your goals should be or what the benchmarks are for you because you know your revenue, you know your expenses, you know all of these things that are important for you to be profitable. Put them in our software. So we built essentially a goal setting machine where in every category of the business, from leads to membership to monthly recurring revenue to utilization to, every KPI you can think of, you can now set a goal per location, different times of the year. Maybe it varies by season. And then we have dashboards we present to you to say okay, you're 20% to goal. You've got some work to do here, red flashing. Here's where you're spending your time this month. Yeah, your revenue looks fantastic, but your MRR is way below goal. So you might have sold 1,010,000 class packs, but you're going to be struggling 2 months from now because your monthly recurring revenue is not where it should be. So we're giving business owners a blueprint to not just see the data, but to know what to do next. And we actually have now professional services at Walla that can help those businesses if they get to the point where they're like, I've exhausted everything. I need help. Who can help coach me through how to use this software to move the needle on this KPI? And we do that now.
Amazing. So not even from a retention or stickiness of the member, but proactive reaching out, automated reaching out, right? Or just even visibility, awareness. Because some of the times, as an operator, we've both been there where you're just running, right? And sometimes to stop and pause and say, oh, shoot, all of these different variables maybe affecting them even continuing, which you don't want. You don't want people to churn. And
Yeah.
then proactive actually filling spots, right? And revenue generation, or even you kind of were touching on this on the coachability, but like vertical margins. Like, how is each one of my service offerings doing from a margin
Oh,
perspective?
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can use the AI to do that too. I remember that was some of
Yep.
the big things that I saw when I was sifting through and going through all the demos and all of that.
Yeah. It's really interesting because we pretty clearly show you what's working and what's not working. And we
Yeah.
also say, like, okay, you've hit 60% utilization in this service offering for the last 6 weeks. Like, it's time to add more classes to your schedule. Like, or this is when you shouldn't be because you're below 60% margin. Like, we kind of give barometers for people to say, okay, the answer is not more classes on the schedule, or the answer is we need more for our clients because people are dropping their memberships because they can't get into class anymore. So we're trying to really, again, give solutions rather than just dumping data on your lap and saying, good luck.
So a lot of people I have on the show, very operator focused or finance focused, but I don't think a lot of people in our industry, at least it's getting better, but they don't necessarily understand what it's like to build a tech company. And you just chatted about how a lot of this is single point source of truth, right? It's all
Yeah.
internal. You're not having to go to 9 different third, fourth parties. What was that like? What's that been like? I can't imagine from a capital to a
Yeah.
piece to, and we'll get to that, but just the you and Doug like going at it and tinkering and
Yeah.
testing. Like how is it like building Walla from scratch and keeping it in house?
Yeah. I mean, pretty early on, Doug was clear about his vision on this. In kind of terms of, I guess, general tech being more of an Apple will build it versus an Android will integrate or will, buy it down the road.
Mm.
And the reason for that is, Doug had the tech chops. This is his third, company he's built. The first probably 5, 6 employees at Walla are people that have worked for him for almost 20 years. So we have a core team of individuals who know how to build successfully together. And that gave us the confidence that this is something we could probably do smarter and better than what's out there right now. And really, a lot of the kind of peripheral tech partner market that exists in our industry right now was built based on lack of functionality in MindBody, or I shouldn't say lack of functionality, lack of evolution in
Mm, mm,
MindBody
mm.
with the kind of the industry trends and times. MindBody has since built a lot more, and now you can do a lot more in-house with them. But there was
Yeah.
this huge market. I mean, I used to teach at MindBody University. There would be 40 tech partners there who were doing everything from we can two-way text to we can build a sales engine to, whatever the aspect of the business might be that a studio
Yeah.
couldn't get done in MindBody. And when we looked at their products, some of them were complex, but most of them were really just fixing one small thing that you couldn't do in MindBody. Example, like at one point, Heel Code was just because MindBody didn't have widgets. So
Right.
they eventually acquired that business. But the kind of thesis on our front was we have a very reliable, very experienced team in-house that can do this. And yes, you're right. It was definitely an expensive choice to do that. And it meant we had to put on our pitching pants and go out and raise some
Your
money.
capital raise. Yeah. Those are always fun, especially while still operating the business, right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Well, I
Yes.
joke raising money in the early days was actually super fun for me because it's sales. Like I like
Yeah.
sales. That's my jam.
Love
And
it.
you're selling a vision. You don't have customers yet. You're selling an opportunity that exists in a
Mhm.
market. And, later stages, it's much more about like very granular KPIs and, what's happened and what we think can happen, but it's black and
Yeah.
white. It's less storytelling.
I want to stick with the AI front. I got 2 questions around it. Maybe one, I'll leave the controversial one for the second one. The first one, though, is I think there's a lot of stuff going on the large language models, right? We know the OpenAI chat and the Claudes and the,
Yeah.
Geminis and co-pilots. And what would you say, right? Knowing really the behind the scenes and the intricacies of everything, like what if an owner that's listening to this says, well, I'll just put my member base into Claude and use Claude Code and I'll run my business that way. What are the pros and cons to that? And I can only imagine. Yeah, I'm curious what you
Yeah.
would say, like how Walla, completely destroys that that
Yeah.
that decision.
It's a great question. And it's one I would say Q1 of this year, we started hearing that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to change software right now because I might be able to build my own
Yeah,
perfectly
transit. Yeah.
in 6 months. Like, why should I make that change? Some of the more sophisticated folks that had tech backgrounds saw the opportunity. And what I'd say to that is, yes, there is, if you read anything about SaaS right now, the last year has just been, is SaaS dead?
And brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been brutal. But what is surviving is deeply entrenched vertical SaaS. And when you see the depth of what we can do in Walla, the reason I don't worry about that is because they would get a month into it and realize, oh my God, how do you pause plans? Wait, how do you have a late cancel no-show fee, but make sure that the teacher still gets paid for the late cancel no-show when they're in a headcount software when somebody didn't actually show up to the class? I could go on for days. It is unbelievable how intricate this software is. And it would take, you would be living in a world of constant development. You would not be running your business anymore. You would be running a relationship with Claude Code, constantly building software.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's why anybody got in the business of fitness. So it's not something I worry about. I do think that, there are going to be larger, maybe franchises or chains of businesses that will heavily invest in build, essentially they'll use the core of a software like Walla or MindBody and use the API to essentially extract and build a UI that is all their own. So I think that will end up happening at some point, but they're still going to need the core because all of those intricacies, all of those settings, all of those, global permissions versus local permissions, the number of permissions and that you can have in a software just from compliance purposes in some cases.
Yeah.
It's a very, very complicated platform. And it's so funny. I laugh. I'm like, yeah, this is for a yoga studio and it has to be this complicated. But some of our investors have talked to us about similar verticals, like even car wash software or, legal software, whatever. They all have these very granular intricacies that are tricky to replicate, more than tricky to replicate. It's been 6 years and we never stopped building. Never.
Yeah, you're constantly evolving, which is great, which is why I'm a big fan and curious. So this is my controversial one, right? Because I think about powered by Walla, right? That's the way I like to call it is y'all are predicting, proactive, both on the retention and revenue side, reaching out, communicating, professional services and coaching. As an owner, I'm thinking, where can I reduce human headcount and allow Walla to just do its thing? Are you seeing that? Are you all promoting that? Obviously, from a finance lens, I'm like, hey, there's some margin lifts, investing more in this software than human headcount. I know people give me a hard time about that, but that's just maybe the world we're living in right now.
I have kind of a two-sided answer to that question. The first is, yes, of course, there are going to be certain aspects of a studio business that now can be run pretty completely by AI. Maybe it is something like social media management, or I'll go into a couple more detailed examples when I talk through the agents that we're building right now.
Yeah.
But what I would say that protects our industry is we are a deeply human industry, and people don't come to your studio just for your workout and, a quick sweat and leave. The businesses that we see maintaining member base, keeping people at high ticket prices, to be honest. Like, we see people who have kept members for 2 years at $300 a month for Pilates classes, those businesses need human interaction. If you don't know that one of your clients just had knee surgery and you're relying on AI to send a message at 90 days, we miss you, and, this person hasn't bought anything in X number of days, send them this deal, or even, curating a specific chain of communication just based on their activity dropped. You need the person that cares about them, that says, oh my gosh, how are you doing? I got to make sure I turn off all of those automations because this person's having knee surgery and we should send them flowers. And that is what makes a fitness community thrive and survive long term. So as much as I think there are certain aspects of a studio business that can be tremendously helped and enhanced by AI, there are very few that can be completely eliminated. Part of what we are working through with our professional services model is being, we are the home to all the data. So we really do have a lot of the answers for the business. Yeah. And we can use agents to answer questions and give guidance. And, we want to hopefully help a studio get over some of the hurdles or avoid some of the hurdles that they might otherwise face. But they still need a person standing there. I actually was just on the phone with one of our clients, Danny from Home Yoga in San Francisco. Yeah. And he was like, you know what? AI can do a lot now for my studio. I'm keeping my staff and their job is to hug people and to ask them about their day and to talk to them about what's going on in their lives and to introduce them to each other. And that is what's working in our business. And I was like, pretty cool. Spot on. That's it. Retention is unbelievable there.
Let's talk about pricing. And you made me think about something right now where you have this tremendous amount of data. And let's just use yoga, for example, right? You have this tremendous amount of yoga studio data throughout the country. And I can imagine you have benchmarks, right? If you think about how you're coaching some of the owners, like how does Walla do that? Like how can have you all been able to segment it that way where it's like, well, out of all the yoga studios throughout the country, here's like your specific pricing points on packages and memberships. And like, these are the optimal ways to price your different services within your studio. Is that something y'all do yet?
So the answer is not yet. We have all that data. We are looking at it in that way. What we find most often is that until you understand the business's unit economics, like the specific expenses, the payroll, the details of that business's P&L, it's pretty hard to tell them what to price. And we can give them those benchmarks. And we are one of the pricing agents that we're working on right now. So, that is one of the goals of it, is to give them, here's your area, here are the benchmarks, here's what is, a commonly paid price. But we can also look at utilization in their business and say, okay, your average 8 times a month member is only coming 5 times a month. So you have wiggle room to actually take that price down slightly and still make a really decent margin on each price per visit, right? So that's really where we're looking at it, is much more of an individual lens for the business and knowing their specific consumer behavior. In the goal setting aspect of Walla, you can input all of your expenses as well. So one of the things I don't know anybody else that does this right now, but we have a heavy focus on profit in Walla. We don't want you focusing on revenue as your only metric. Once people put their expenses in there, then we have that data to help them understand, like, okay, great, you have had this really successful intro offer at $30 a month for the last 2 years, seemingly, but actually look at how much money you're losing on that. And so we're really trying to look at these businesses more individually and less, how can we compare you to your neighborhood Pilates studios? Because every business, you don't know what they're paying in rent. You don't know how much they're paying their teachers. It really is a difference.
And so curious about that, right? And I love the profit focus, cash focus. So let's say they're running with thin margins, which, by the way,
most are.
Wait a second. Now I'm wondering, is Walla is taking away my job security? I'm in big trouble. You guys are killing it. No. So let's say their margins are super thin. We know that's kind of a common thing in the industry. So give us an example. Like, what would Walla, you mentioned rent or labor, payroll is a big one, right? Or some of these other variable expenses. Like, what does that look like? Like, what would Walla advise to go do?
In some cases, it's going to say, hey, you're making a ton on these classes with this teacher. This teacher deserves a raise. Like, look at their metrics across the board. They're the most reliable. You have the highest margins on their classes. Amazing. Yeah. We've got teacher dashboards that show you profitability by teacher, how many classes they're getting subbed out, average attendance and utilization compared to the average of the studio. So we really can give you coaching on how to retain that teacher. Like, hey, flag, this is a person who you don't want to lose to your competitor right now. And you have margin to give them a raise. Vice versa, you may have somebody who's losing money for you on most of their classes. And it may be the time slot, it may be, the type of class. There are things you can try before you let somebody go, of course. But yeah, we can get into that detail because again, we've got all the data, but we also understand, like we know these businesses so thoroughly.
How does it work? I mean, have you seen any struggles? Like a lot of owners that are listening to this, they either got to multi-unit, right? So they expanded their number of studios or they're looking to. What I've learned is when you go from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, right, it gets significantly harder. And this is where your infrastructure gets pressed. How does Walla solve for that and make sure when you go from 1 to 3 units or what have you, you're still in good shape?
Yeah. So first thing is that everything is under one roof. So your one login, all of your answers are there, and we have a very easy to understand kind of permissioning system. So you can have somebody who's a teacher at one location, but a manager at another location or a front desk at another location, just see the aspect of the business location by location in the way that makes sense to them as an individual, which most studio platforms cannot do that. You're jumping from like physically, you've got another tab open for location B or location C. So it makes it easier just from like a quick glance infrastructure perspective. Where I think it really ends up saving people time and just stress, to be honest, is the data, the reporting, you can compare and contrast your locations. We have a KPI spreadsheet that shows all of them side by side. So who's performing from a conversions perspective, who needs help from a leads perspective. So everything is there in one place and you can build, let's say, an automation once and you can say, I need it at these 4 locations. Location 5, I'm holding off because they're in pre-sale right now, but then I'll turn that on then. Just to be able to check all those boxes in one easy spot makes a really, really big difference. And then the staffing perspective, we know that these businesses don't have full-time employees for the most part. A lot of them have tons of part-time staff, and this is their second or third priority. And so if they have to spend hours and hours learning a system, training on a system, it's not going to happen. They're not going to learn it. Yeah. They're going to just have the tech support number on the computer when you walk in. Like that is what ends up happening with a lot of these studios. Yeah. The feedback we get over and over again. I mean, I think we have a quote on our website because somebody said it to us. It was like, it took me 13 years to learn Mindbody and it took me 13 minutes to learn Walla. It was just, it really, really is unbelievably intuitive. And a big part of that is the verbiage is speaking the studio language. So you go in, you know exactly where to go. The button is right there next to the action you need to take at that time when you're in the software.
Yeah. Well, you've built a software company, you host a podcast, right? You're obviously embedded into AI and the modern way of how an operator runs a studio or studios. My last question for you, and I could ask you 1,000 more, I want to respect your time. Where is this all going? Like, what are you seeing? Yeah. What's on the roadmap of what you can talk about, right? You're talking about the agentic wave and agents. Yeah. What's next? Like, what should the industry really prepare for right now?
Yeah. I mean, what I can tell you is that from a big picture standpoint, we have more eyes on this industry than ever before. There are so many more people who think about and care about their wellness day to day. We also exist in a world where true, authentic human interaction is not as easy to come by. And what we want to do at Walla is make that as easy as possible for studios. We want to be invisible behind the scenes, giving them the opportunity to offer that true, authentic human interaction. One of the things we've learned as we've gone, and frankly, it's been one of the challenges is these businesses, often like 1 to 5 location studios, they're still owner operators. They're still people who are in the business, teaching classes, working 60 hours a week on their studios. They just want someone to talk to who, and you know this, they want to talk to you. They want somebody who understands their industry and can help them, who can be a sounding board, who can help them make decisions, and who can help them use the tools they have better. So we are leaning hard into very human, face-to-face professional services.
Yeah.
And what we found when we look at, the data of how our software is being used, not enough people are using all of the tools they have. And it really isn't because it's too hard. It's because they don't have time and they just need that person to sit with them for an hour and say, okay, let's do a quick little audit here. Like, here's what the software is telling you. You've got a challenge with, lead generation or conversions or retention, or your staff is struggling with utilization. We can hone in and focus on the tools in the software that will help them move the needle there. And yes, we can get those answers quicker for them because we can use agentic tools to do that behind the scenes. But I will say, like, I think this industry is going in a direction where the studio owners need a support system, and not just studio owners, business owners in fitness and wellness in general, need community amongst themselves, because it is, with the volume of people walking through the doors of wellness businesses today, the playbook of yesterday will not work. And they're going to need guidance, coaching, and a community of support to help them.
So true. I love this. Well, this was so amazing. I'm glad we got to chat about your story and Walla. I'm a huge fan. And for those that want to learn more about Walla or just connect with you, Laura, how could they do that?
Yeah. Our website is hellowalla.com. So you can head there for all the things. Walla Software is our Instagram handle, Facebook, if any of you are on Facebook. And then me personally, my Instagram is laura.munkholm. And I'm sure we can share all of that in the show notes. Yes. But one thing I would say too is we host a monthly webinar series, and I host it for Walla. I think we're probably at somewhere around 50, 60 episodes. I've done it every month for years and years and years. And we have a wealth of knowledge from folks in the industry who really know. I need to have you come on, Albert, and do one.
I would love to.
We need you on the webinar. So alongside the podcast is a little more like is stories of these business owners and, great, interesting conversation. But the webinars are, you can do something in that time to move the needle in your business. Yeah. So I would highly recommend. It's under the resources tab on our website. You'll find them.
Y'all got to check that out. It's so good. Well, Laura, this has been such a pleasure. I really appreciate your time. And I would love to jump on a webinar with Walla and you and everyone else that's joining in. And I know we talked a lot about unit economics. We were throwing out some finance verbiage. So for any wellness, fitness, or longevity operators, franchisors, or franchisees out there that want that CFO level support, we talked about Walla coaching and the professional services. Go do that.
Yes.
And then you hit me up, right? Yes. If you're needing any financial modeling or capital raise prep or
we are not that. You need Albert.
We're partnering up. We help. I love it. It's at strategointel.com. Yes. But this has been another episode of the Owner Seat Podcast. As always, I'm your host. And if this is your first time tuning in, we drop every episode every Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. Central. Laura, such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. I can't believe we took so long to get this done.
I know.
My fault. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, very grateful. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, everybody. Thanks.